Hey guys, RJ here with another of RJ's Android app tutorials. Today we're going to continue our Android Basics series and go into how to load a list of data using a recycler view. So to get started, we're just going to do start a new Android Studio project. We're going to call it list. Minimum API level of 5.0 is fine. Empty activity is fine. Main activity is a perfectly adequate name. So good to go there. Okay, so as it builds, I'm going to show you the library that we are going to be using today. The library is called the RecyclerView library. It's part of the Android support library made by Google. The Android team at Google makes all of these different support libraries to make coding in Android easier and backwards compatibility easier. So you can go to this website and copy the Gradle dependency, or I'll leave it in the video description for you guys. So if we go ahead and go to our build.gradle, this is where we manage all of our dependencies, and we add a line here for compile, and then we paste in our recycler view. It includes these dependencies for us. We don't really need them, but we're just going to leave them anyway. So go ahead and sync the app, so we'll pull in our new dependency. If we go into our main activity class and we jump to our layout class, or we go here on the side to the layouts, I use Command B to jump in. And if you want to see more of the cool shortcuts in Android Studio, check out my shortcuts video. Right now it's just rendering a text view in the center of a constraint layout. We're going to change this to a relative layout. And we're going to do match parent, all good there. We're going to change this to a recycler view. And we're going to do match parent, and we're going to delete all of this. Perfect. Let's give our recycler view an ID. We'll call it activity main recycler view. Okay. Let's see what I see. All right, recycler view, perfect. Okay, if we look here, now you can see item. This is how it renders the recycler view in our layout editor, so we are doing great so far. The other thing that every list of item needs is a view for the list. So let's do a new layout resource file. We'll call it list item text. We're just gonna do a super simple list item today. So you guys get the basics, and once you know how to do this, you can render any view type. So we're going to change from the layout height being match parent to wrap content. Because in a recycler view, if you have your children do match parent, they will fill the entire size of the recycler view. So then we're going to add a text view, match parent, and wrap content for the height. We're going to set the text size to 18. Now we'll do 24. Make it nice and easy to see. Android. Text color. We'll do Android color black. Perfect. And give this an ID. Call it li list item text text. Okay, so let's look. Can't see it. Let's use our tools namespace to render something just in the tools and not in our actual app. And we'll just call this title. Perfect. Okay, so there we go. We see title. Let's give it a little bit of margin around it just so it's not right up against each other. Android margin 8 dp. That should be good. Okay, perfect. Now we got a little bit of space around each of our items. So that's all we need to get our list view going in terms of views. Sorry, our recycler view list. This will be the item in our recycler view, and our recycler view is just in charge of laying them out on the screen. So let's reference our recycler view. Equals recycler view, find view by ID, r.id dot recycler view. And we use that find view by ID method that we use for every finding any views. There's two things that we need for every recycler view. This first is a layout manager. We're going to use a linear layout manager today, but there's lots of other layout managers you can use in different scenarios, and we'll go over that at the end. Main activity is an instance of context, so we can just pass context there. All right, RecyclerView, and the other thing that we need for RecyclerView is an adapter. So we're going to create our own special custom adapter. We'll call it a text adapter. Perfect. Extends RecyclerView adapter. Okay, so this is where the magic happens for a RecyclerView. RecyclerView needs an adapter. The adapter is in charge of telling it what to render on screen at what time. The RecyclerView knows when something scrolls into view, and once it scrolls into view, it asks the adapter, first off, if it doesn't have a view holder for that position, it will ask it to create a view holder using this onCreateViewHolder method. And then when the view is scrolled onto screen again, it will say onBindViewHolder. What makes a RecyclerView so great is instead of drawing all the views at once, it only draws the views that are on screen. So there's also one other method we can override. It's called getItemViewType. And in this method, we are responsible for returning the type of the item at that position. So if you had a title at the first item, you could return a different position, a different item, and then for all the rest of your items, you could just return a list item type or whatever. So this is how Facebook renders their feed. They have a giant switch case here with all the different types, and then they render different types of items for every single newsfeed item, whether it's a link or a friend post or whatever. That's how you can render different types of items in a RecyclerView. We're just going to focus on one type right now. Okay, so there's a lot of talk of this RecyclerView view holder, so we're going to need to create one of those. Let's do a custom one. We'll do static class. We'll call it text view holder, and it extends view holder. Okay, so what a view holder does is it's really mostly just a wrapper around a view. You pass it a view type, and then it just wraps that view type so that a RecyclerView can deal with it. The RecyclerView will call this bindViewHolder method every time the view comes on screen. So we want to create a method called public void bind, where we do whatever we want to do when that view comes on the screen. Since in our item all we have is a text view, we'll want to set the text for that text view. So let's go back to our adapter. Let's reference our text view. It's going to be a member variable, so we'll do private text view. Text view, there we go, just like that. Text view equals, now we can't do find view by ID because this isn't a view class, it doesn't have that method. But if we do item view, find view by ID, we can use that. Every view class has a method find view by ID on it as well, so we take advantage of that. r.id.text. Do some casting. All right, so now in our bind method, we can set the text of our text view. So we'll just pass in a string here. Okay, so now we have this method bind. We haven't really associated our view holder with our view that we want it to have. So this is what I like to do. This is a pattern I follow. I create a public static method which creates an instance of the view holder we're using. So text view holder. And I call it inflate, and you'll see why in a minute. And this inflate method has one parameter. It's a view group parent. And you'll see view group parent is the same thing we get in on create view holder. We get this parent. This parent allows us to do layout inflator from parent.context, get context, inflate r.layout.listItemText. And then the view group that we inflate it onto is the parent, but we don't attach it to the parent because we want these views to be recycled, and so they're going to be added and taken away from the view. So this is going to create our view. And then we can do new return new text view holder with that view. Okay, so it's a little weird, but what you have to do is you have to inflate the views yourself. And this is sort of like what the activity is doing behind the scenes when you say set content view. So if we go back to our main activity, we say set content view. Back in the depths of that class, somewhere a layout inflator is getting called, which is inflating the actual layout. We're doing this a little more manually, so we use a context and we inflate the layout from the resource that we want. And then we pass it into our view holder because it has to take in that instance of the view, and then we just do whatever we want with it. So in our onCreate view holder, we only have one type, but we'll do a switch, we'll do an if on it anyway. That way if we ever wanted to add a different type, we would know. View type equals 0, because that's what we're returning down here. We're returning 0. Return text view holder, inflate parent. Perfect. And we'll do else return null for now. But you can imagine here you could have a switch case. We say like if position equals 1, return this view type, and if position equals 2, return that type. Okay, so now what we can do is we can say in our onBindViewHolder method, we'll say if holder is instance of text view holder, we'll cast to our text view holder and we'll say bind. Now what do we want to set our text view? Well, basically we want our RecyclerView to have a list of strings, and we'll render each one on an item. So in order to do that, we're going to create our backing array at private list string items. Array list. Okay, so here we're saying we have this array list that's going to be the backing of our RecyclerView. So now we know what our item count is. We return, instead of just 0, item size. We'll probably want a method where we can actually set the items. So we'll do set items, list of strings, items, items equals, perfect. And the other important thing to call here is a method on RecyclerView called notifiedDatasetChanged. And what notifiedDatasetChanged does is, it's pretty self-explanatory, but you're saying that the backing array of our RecyclerView has changed. So now start at the beginning and render every row again just to make sure that our data is consistent. There are other methods like notify item changed, notify item changed. And so you could just say, if you just had one item on your list that changed, like if you clicked the like button and you sent a request to the backend and the backend said, yep, successfully been liked, you could say notify item changed at that position, and it would just re-render that one item. But we're just going to say, whenever we call set items, re-render all the items in our list. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. So now that we have our backing array, we can do mItems get position as the text set in our view holder. Okay, so let's go back to our main activity. We need to set the adapter. So let's create the instance of our adapter. Text adapter equals new text adapter. Perfect. And then we'll set our text adapter here. Okay, and once it's set, we want to set the items. So let's create a new list of strings. We'll call it string list equals new array list Okay, let's do string list add Android okay, Android makes it easy to load lists of one more data. Okay, sort of a stupid list, but it will do for our purposes. And actually what we should do is we can do a new list, string list equals new array list. We're going to do list add all string list. We'll do that a couple times. That way we'll get a good number of items in our list so we can actually see it scroll. And we'll set that list. Okay, so if we did everything correctly, we should see our recycler view in action. And this is a really cool class because it makes it so easy to efficiently display lots of different types of data all at once. And we can use it when we're just doing simple lists like the one we're making. But you can also use it to create more complicated lists, like Facebook's whole news feed or things like that. Okay, Android Studio is freaking out on me. Let's see what happens here. Okay, there we go. It's working. And if we look, check it out. We have made a nice list of data appear on our screen. All right, I'm going to show you guys one more thing to show you the power of our recycler view. Because we said at the beginning here, we set our layout manager with one line of code, change. I'm going to copy this. And instead of using a linear layout manager, if we instead use a grid layout manager, and we have a span count of 3, we run everything else exactly the same. You'll see how powerful a recycler view is, because without changing anything else, we can render this list of items as a grid. And look at that, it worked perfectly. So RecyclerView is a great class. It's really efficient. It's what I use for all my lists. And in our next couple of videos, we'll sort of explore making a little more complicated lists with headers and whatnot. But for now, congratulate yourself. You guys can make a list. And obviously, you can change your layout to be anything you want. And then in your adapter class, just make your bind method, do all the other things that you want it to do. And you can change this to return, say, like, if position 5x2 equals 0, return one type, and then if not, return another type. You got infinite options as to how to return different view types, and then you could render different view holders based on the view type. Use this instance check to use your different view holders, and you can make really complicated views really quickly, and they're very efficient. So thank you guys so much for watching. Check out my build the Snapchat app tutorial if you're interested in how to build more complicated apps, and check out some of my other Android Studio basics tutorials in order to get better at Android in general. And as always, please like and subscribe to the channel because it really helps me out a lot. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.